Hello Design Sessions members, I'm Rebecca Robeson and today's session is going to be amazing. I'm going to show you how to take your house, all the things you've already done from the things you've already learned in the design sessions and take it to the next level. We've had sessions on how to pick the right paint colors, even the right white. Believe it or not, that's not that simple. We had a session on how to select pillows and we've done window treatments and lighting. If you have missed any of those sessions, you gotta go back and watch those because it is all a layering process being a part of the design sessions and really making a difference in your home. But here is a session that's gonna take it up a notch. Are you ready? Adding molding, casements, crown molding, base molding, wood on your walls can and will make a focal point. The bottom line, it's how you accent something and make it special. Anytime you add any kind of wood or embellishments to an area, that's what's going to show. And I'm going to show you how I did it in my home, other homes, less expensive homes, apartment rentals, even temporary places, and how I do it in my own projects. Number two, we're going to talk about the fact that when you do add these kinds of things to your home, it doesn't have to be fussy. It can be as contemporary and modern and hip and farmhouse as you want it to be. It depends on the materials that you select and how you do it. The third thing is we're going to talk about how you can actually fix architectural issues in your home. Now, you may not even know you have architectural issues, but once I show you photos, the before, my ideas, and then the after, it's going to become very clear to you whether you're a DIYer or you're an interior design professional watching this session. We are going to cover the gamut of styles and budgets. There's going to be, actually you've already received a PDF that you can download and it'll have a checklist for you so you can go throughout your home and you can take a look around and see how are my windows, how are my doors, exactly the kinds of things you should be looking for in areas that you can embellish and take to the next level. So if you're ready to roll up your sleeves like I am, let's get started. Actually, before I get started, now's the time for me to tell you, if you're watching this live while we are putting it up for the first time, you can interact with me. I am live on Twitter the entire session, and it's just hashtag Design Sessions Live. Ask me any questions that you want. You can even send me pictures of your home. I try to get you to keep it in the same topic as what we're talking about so that I'm not all over the place. But send me pictures and I'll draw on them and I'll give you my ideas or my suggestions. Okay, so that makes it really fun. So let's start with principle number one. That is how to take your space and decide where you want to emphasize any kind of focal point. Well, obviously in my home, the first thing you see is this big, huge wall of drywall. Take a look at the before pictures. Yeah, it was very unimpressive and not a wow by any means. The first thing that I did was I actually added this mirror, and it's 10 feet tall in the center point, and it's arched on the top. Now this is wood. I'm thinking this is probably walnut, but it is 8-inch wide casement. Most people that walk into my house for the first time, they either think this is a window or they think it's a pass-through to another room. So 8-inch wide casement really made this amazing. Now, because it's arched on the top, we had to make a template, and you can actually order casement by taking your template down, and you get the same thing you have here, and they'll make a rubberized version of your casement in an arch for you, and it works perfectly. And a lot of times I have a table here and a big floral arrangement so that people don't walk into it. You'd think they'd see themselves and stop walking, but it's really deceiving kind of a piece in my entry. But the casement here made such a big difference, and this is stained. Now, some of you probably think you either have to have stained or you have to have painted. First off, I think when you do all wood, it starts to get dark, and I really like a lighter feel. But if you mix and match, now for example, in my house, I have dark wood stairs, and then I have the dark wood here. I have a dark wood coffee table, and I have a dark wood door. Those elements are repeated, so it's not like everything in my living room is white, and then I have one dark piece that's stained here. You want to have a repetition, and we've talked about that before in other design sessions, how you repeat a finish in more than one location, which balances it and makes it, kind of gives you the permission to do it. Let me also tell you why this was important to me, not just because it was my entry. This is a vaulted ceiling, which, by the way, I personally hate. Vaulted ceilings are so much harder to decorate around, but this is the tallest wall, and I wanted that to be the point. So this was something I wanted to highlight. But if you've got something big, and this is a pretty big mirror, having it in the dark stain makes it really rich, and defining the space is fine because it's still big. Let me show you another area where I used casements, and we're going to talk about casements in all different budget levels. Mine is the mid-budget, right over here. On principle number 1 of bringing out your best features, I go from that mirror, then over to this wall. Again, I identified the best feature of this room is this high ceiling, and it's only on this wall. Now, this used to be a dining room. Take a look at the before pictures. We didn't really need a formal dining room. We needed a home office. So I had my builder close in this wall and create an opening here. Now this casement here is nice and broad. That's where, when it's not a door, like you do casements on doors, I would say probably 95% of the projects we do, I have to select casements and base mold. Not crown mold everywhere, but base mold and casements. So this is one of my favorites, and I use it in my home, and the reason I love it so much, I'll show you in a book in a few minutes. I love this because this one is, I call it transitional. It has a very square edge here, which is a nice modern look, but then it does have some softness, so it's transitional. It does both. This is what I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be fancy or fussy. It can just be fabulous. This one is great because it comes in like 3 or 4 different sizes. I think this one's like 4 3/4 inches wide, so that's a really wide one. When you don't have a door, but you're just casing an opening, perfect place to put something beefier. Same time, I put in these 3 architecturally salvaged windows, and those were cased. Now, in hindsight, I would use this kind of casement up there. That's just regular cheapo casement that we did when we first moved in. This was added later. I would have gone with maybe the 1 3/4 or 2-inch casement up there, but the same molding. I don't think it looks bad, but it's not perfect. So in a client's house, I would do it perfect. Okay, so that opening there just sets this apart and says this is special. My built-in comes over here. Now we're not going to talk about that today because we are going to have a design session specifically on built-ins, and that's coming up pretty soon. The beauty of picking a molding or a casement that has different sizes available in a particular profile is that depending on where you're using it, for example, I'm going to show you as we go into my dining room and in my powder room how I had to change the sizing based on my available space and based on what I wanted it to look like. Come with me. Looking back at the before pictures of this area, what we now use as our dining room in my home, you'll see that this wall had 3 doors on it. And you've seen me talk about this before, especially on YouTube. I had a door here that goes underneath of my staircase. We use it for storage for luggage and things, but it was just too many doors. So this one, we actually took the casement off and we put the same texture on the doors we had on the wall. And that kind of made a, you know, it's not there kind of a thing. So you need to know when to case and when not to case, and in which case you do it, you know what I'm saying? On the way into the powder room, as well as now the laundry room, I was able to use that 4 3/4 inch casement again. Same thing I used in the living room, which is kind of interesting because it's a pretty bold casement. But since this was gone, I didn't have this competitive thing going on here, which is good. And I also thought that this just kind of set these doors apart. We changed the doors out to single core doors too. But this was beautiful here, but guess what? On the inside of my powder room, I had a problem. And this is why it makes a whole lot of sense to pick a profile when you're casing things that you can get in different sizes. So I'm going to show you how in my bathroom, I went from the 4 3/4 to the 2 3/4 inch. Let me show you how and why. in the bathroom, I didn't have very much room above. The door almost comes to the ceiling. It's a really dropped ceiling. Love that, you can imagine, but I couldn't change it. So I had to go with a smaller casement so it would fit. So it's 4 3/4 on the outside, but it's only 2 3/4 on the inside. Did you know you could do that? I bet you thought that whatever casement you pick has to be the same on both sides. And of course, you'd come in and realize this is an issue of size on this side, so you'd do 2 3/4 on the outside too. You don't have to. This nice door jamb in between gives you the freedom to completely change the size where you need to. So sometimes you're gonna have to deal with that, and having the casements that come in different sizes makes it all seamless. So my contractor did a return right here, and then over here, he just sort of coped it in. Do you know that every time I'm in this bathroom and I sit there and I look up here, I think, oh, that bugs me. You know what I would have done differently? I have 2 choices. One, I would have had him bring this crown all the way across and be part of the top of the casement. He would have had to cut the casement part right here out, right at this part here, bring it across, then cut it out and go across so that there was a mitered corner here. It would have looked consistent. Or my second option, and it might have been what I ended up with, I wouldn't have done crown at all, because that just bugs me. So here's a Robeson Design tip that you're only gonna get here, and it's pretty important stuff. So remember, we've talked about mirrors. We did a design session on art and mirrors. Well, in the mirrors, I tell you, take your mirrors all the way to the ceiling and take them to the floor, no baseboard. What if you have crown molding in the room? What do? If I had taken this crown molding across my mirror, this room would have looked shorter. It's already really short, okay? So what I did here is I take my crown and I run it right straight into that mirror. And then the mirror reflection keeps that crown continuing on, and it makes the room look larger. That is a tip, and you can do the same thing with your baseboards. If your baseboard runs into it, you just hit straight on that mirror, and don't return it, just stop it right at the mirror. So let's talk about baseboards. Now, baseboards are an area where you can make a huge difference in your house. I would venture to say that more than most have those little tiny baseboards that are about, what, maybe 2 inches tall. Take a look at your baseboards in your house and see what you've got, okay? That is really typical. It's what most houses come with. And the difference between that and what I'm going to show you now is what really makes a house shine. It makes it look like it's more expensive, more custom. Baseboards, huge importance. You may not ever do new casements, but try to do new baseboards if you can. My house has baseboards that are 6 inches tall, which seemed super tall at the time. It seemed so luxurious to me. This is an 8-foot ceiling height in here, so it's very standard. So 6 inches is really a good height. But in my living room, I could have gone 8 if I wanted, because I have such high ceilings in there. So you have to kind of like let the proportions of your room size dictate what size you're going to use on your baseboards and even on your casements and things like that. This is the actual baseboard that we used in this home, and you see how it comes down here to a flat finish? And I could have just done that. Now, at the time when we did this, this is when we first moved into our house, I was way more into fancy and fussy, okay? So I've gone more, I've backed it off a little bit, more transitional now. But you could do just this, and this would be a great transitional baseboard for you. Can you see that? Maybe against a dark color, right? And you see the profile here? Right there, you can see the profile. We added something called a base shoe. This isn't the actual one, but this is a typical one. What this does is it adds just one more layer and makes it a little bit more custom. I always think of using a base shoe to add that extra layer of class. But another reason to use a base shoe is to kind of cover the fact that floors aren't always even and walls aren't always even. So they can lay this one flat, and then they can cover a multitude of sins with this base shoe. Your contractor, your husband, or even you will be happy that you added a base shoe. Now, you know what? This is MDF. MDF means multi-dense fiber thingies. It's a lot cheaper, and they have a bazillion different profiles in it, so it makes it fun. So you can go like this, and then you have your base shoe put onto the base of that, and it's just one more layer of luxury. Take a look at the baseboards at the Denver project. We did 8-inch baseboards in there because the ceilings were so high, and it was a custom baseboard. And what it was so modern and so simple. It was one rectangular piece with another shorter rectangular piece in front of it, and that was it. So you might be saying, Rebecca, how high should my baseboards be? Well, let me give you a little ropes and design insider tip, all right? Here's how I go. If my ceilings are a standard height, that means in America, that's an 8-foot ceiling. I typically do not do a higher than 6-inch baseboard. But if I'm at a 9-foot ceiling or even higher, I go to 8 inches like that. It makes all the difference in the world to have an 8-inch baseboard. It looks so custom and so classy. So if you've got high ceilings, you really should try to up your game on your baseboards. It'll make a huge difference in your home. What if your walls have the rounded corners or the rounded, like a bullnose edge, not the 90-degree angle like I have here? They actually make rounded baseboard pieces that you can use. It's kind of a pain, but it's possible, and we do it in homes all the time. I actually have shown this on one of my YouTube videos, but I think it's worth repeating. So remember how I told you I took the casement off of this door here because I just wanted it to go away? You gotta follow through. If you're trying to create an illusion, like I have an illusion in my entryway with my casement around my mirror, if you want that illusion to work, you have to do a few things. You got to make this door the same texture as your walls, the same color, no hardware. I have a little button here just so that we don't get handprints all over this thing. But look at this, across this door, do you know what I did? I had my contractor add baseboard to the door so that the illusion goes straight across. Imagine if we had just put a texture on this door, took off the casement, and it went to the floor. Well, you just messed up your illusion. Keep that baseboard running all the way across. It scores right there. And then here is another ropes and design golden tip for you. If this door is going to open, you got to remember to bevel your baseboard. And the reason for that is, come look at this. When you open this door, it's not going to open if it's not beveled. But little things like that, it does an amazing thing to your house, and you're gonna love the difference that it makes. I want to talk to you about crown molding. Crown molding is one of those things that traditionally we have always looked at as being a kind of a high-end custom feature that you'd use in a home. But I think it's something you need to really think about, and I have changed my opinion over the years as an interior designer and how I use crown in my projects, when I use it and when I don't, and why. If I was doing this dining room now, not 15 years ago when we bought this house, I would probably not have done crown in here, and there's a couple of reasons why. One of them is, as you know, when you do crown traditionally, it makes you stop your window treatments. You see what I'm saying? The window treatments cannot go to the ceiling, and that in and of itself kind of makes the room look a little bit shorter. I find that taking my window treatments to the ceiling as often as I can is my best design feature. Secondly, there are places in a home where you have some weird corner you have to turn, or an air conditioning and heating register that you run into. How do you deal with that stuff? How do you decide? I'm also going to talk to you about sizes. Now this one, I believe the drop from the ceiling on the wall, the amount of wall space that it takes up is about 5.5 inches. You need to know when you're picking out your crown what you're selecting. If you take a piece of crown and you measure it with a tape measure, you might think that you're buying 8-inch crown when you most certainly are not. This right here is what we would typically think of as a super duper long, yeah, 8-inch crown right there, right? So you're gonna think to yourself, this is gonna come down my wall, 8 inches. It's gonna land right, well, right about there-ish, right? Well, let's take a look and see what it does on the wall. Let's see, it's gonna be kind of hard to do it where I already have crown, but I'll see if I can do this for you. You gotta remember that when this goes on the wall, it doesn't go flat. It doesn't go like that. It goes like that. Do you see what that did? From here to here. This part sits on the ceiling, this part sits on the wall. So if I thought, let's say this was my ceiling, that was gonna be there, and this went like this, look right here, that dropped a good 2.5 inches. So instead of this being 8-inch base crown molding, 5.5 inches is all that it comes down the wall. So you need to think about that when you're selecting your crown. Now this crown is super fancy. It's like, whoa, really fancy, really fussy. More traditional, and I am choosing this kind of thing a lot less. So my favorite crown actually is kind of like that. This part isn't on there. I wouldn't call it contemporary, I'd call it modern type of a crown molding. But let's see this. We would look at this, we would pick this out in the wood or hardware store, and this one says it's gonna be 6¼ inches. You think this is gonna come down your wall 6¼ inches? Let's see. This is, I think this actually might be my, my crown. See, because I used really typical stuff back then. It actually is. So this comes down, here, I'll do it this way so you guys can see. The amount that this comes down here is a little more than 4 3/4. When I thought it was 6-inch crown. You get that? That angle makes a difference. I love a really simple, clean cove kind of a crown molding, but more and more I'm not even using crown. Over the years, especially having a design practice, I've learned a lot of things. It's one of the really cool things about the design sessions is I not only teach you things, these aren't things you can get, well, as far as I know, anywhere else on the internet. No one else is teaching this, but they're the things that I've discovered on my own. I didn't learn them out of a book. I learned it by doing it the hard way, looking back at it later and going, yep, that was a smart move, I love it, or next time I would do that differently. So you're getting the experience that I've had. You don't have to do it the hard way. You can do it the right way from the get-go. So if I were to do this today all over again, I would probably still crown the top of my fireplace because I think that gives it sort of a special look. But where it comes to either side where I have my window treatments, look at the difference of what it would have looked like had I not had crown here and I could have brought those window treatments to the ceiling. Do you get the overall impression? Look at this one and look at that one over there. I personally like my window treatments to go to the ceiling if it's not a super high, tall room. If it's like a 9 or 10 foot ceiling. That would be my preference today. And if you have seen the design session on window treatments, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because we talked about that principle a lot. If you're an interior designer and you're watching this, or you have a very, lucrative budget or a very healthy budget, you can do what I've done where I have learned how to deal with crown molding and my window treatments going to the top. I've created something, I don't know anyone else who does this, it's just something I made up, where you can do both crown and window treatments to the ceiling, but it does require someone who is a craftsman with crown molding. But take a look at the Rancho Santa Fe project. See that crown molding right there? That crown molding stops right there. Why? Because I want my window treatments to go up to the ceiling. Have you ever noticed that? If you have crown molding in your house, your window treatments can't go to the ceiling, they go under the crown molding. I cut it, and then I put that there, and then I put a shade there, and then I put that there, and then I cut that crown molding right there so that my window treatments could go behind it. Crown molding, cut, crown molding, cut, curtain, crown molding, all the way around, and then the shades go up behind there. This is how we make these things look like they come out of nowhere. All right, let me show you a couple other places where crown molding that I did, I look back and I think, Not such a good choice. So in my dining room, as my crown molding went around, it came to the end of the room and it headed into this entry family room area. So we kind of had to do a return here on the end, as well as on this side, but then the return was different because the wall was different. This is where I look back and I go, do you know how many times I look at this and I am so annoyed by it? And I am excited to share this with you because if you've ever put crown molding in your home, I would bet you money that you have had to deal with this question and this issue. How do I work around a register? How do I turn a corner or end it successfully? And most of the time it's not done well. If I was to do it today, I would choose not to put crown in this dining room except for the fireplace, and that's just the honest truth. Take a look at the project we did in Del Mar. The clients had put crown molding all in their kitchen and family room before, and they felt as though they had done an upgrade to their home until I came in and redid everything, and I chose not to put crown molding in their family room and their kitchen area. And you know what? They love it a lot more now. What we did was amazing, but it was because of these return issues. And you know what? You don't even miss the crown molding. The house looks so much more upscaled now than it did before. I say crown molding, sometimes you just gotta know when to say no. Let's talk about principle number 3, how you can fix architectural weird things that bother you in your house. In my home, take a look at the before picture of the entryway. The ceiling drops, and yet once you get past that entry, you walk into this high ceiling living room. I wanted so badly to take that ceiling up, but it was super expensive, so we kept it where it was. But what I did that I felt like by adding some wood architectural details, I could make it look more special. And that is I created like a transom in front of the drywall. It's a plant-on the drywall with some crown molding above it. So that kind of pulls the eye up where I wish it was, and it makes the ceiling not feel like it drops so much. And as far as the crown on the inside, remember, it has to come and it has to die somewhere. Because remember, you see crown from the side. It would have been hollow. You'd see right through. So when they got to a certain point, they turned the corner and had a return. It works here because it's the same exact thing. Turning back into a wall, turning back into a wall. We still get a symmetrical look without having this funky thing, which is what we had in my dining room. So let me show you this same idea, this application in a client's home that we did a number of years ago. We rectified what I considered a serious problem. Becky's getting techie. Techie Becky. I like it. All right, so I've got my iPad out, and I want to show you some things I did in my clients' homes. This is what I was talking about, principle number 3, where you can change some architectural weird things. Take a look at this hallway. This hallway was in a client's home. There was a door underneath the staircase, one that went into the laundry room, and then look at this linen cabinet. I mean, how weird is that? Look at these doors are 6'8", and then this cabinet is super high in comparison to the doors. It just looked terrible to me. This was just like this hallway that it's like a giant. It's like the giant in the room. And the rest of this was just ho-hum. So I wanted to kind of tie this in together. Look at the other thing. When you turn the corner here, there's like this cabinet was sunk into a niche, and it had like, you know, the rounded walls. I would have had some drywall on this side so that there was a return for that cabinet to fit in, but it was awkward. I said, we need to not make this look so different in height. So let's say I take my line here, if I was gonna take a ruler and bring that line down. I wished my doors were taller. I wanted them to be taller. I wanted them to be the same height as that ugly cabinet. So if I took that line, in other words, maybe there's 12 inches of drywall here. If I had 12 inches left down there, that would help. The other thing I wanted to do, I really wanted to put new doors in, but you can't always do that. For one thing, this walks into a laundry room, and the laundry room has a dropped ceiling. So there's no way you could have put a taller door in there, and probably the same thing under the staircase. So here's what I did. I had them add wood paneled transoms above the doors, and I went to the clients, I said, I think if we did that and we painted it all white, here and here, and then we paint this whole thing out white, then you know what we would do? We would even out the space. You'd have the same heights going along. So this is the principle. When you have a height here and a height here on the same wall, very annoying, okay? You want the heights of everything to be as similar as possible. So by adding the transoms above here, we would be able to do that. So here's a photo in process of that transom that I was talking about. Do you get it? Look, we did new casements on the side of the door all the way up and around, and then within that, this is all mitered. This is something that you'd probably want to have a contractor do unless you happen to be super handy. Or if you were going with a really, really simple, like straight lines up, it's more shaker style doors and it doesn't have to be as fancy. But just by adding that, this shows you, and then inside here, this is just right here, this is MDF. But once it gets painted, what a difference. Do you want to see what it looked like done? Okay. Look how great that looks. If I zoom in, you can see here the doors with the transoms added, all painted white. It makes it look as though it's just as tall as this one over here, and that cabinet was now painted out white. You say that I'm too worried. In today's episode, I want to include other things besides crown, base, and casements. I want to include wainscot, and I also want to include wood on the walls. You know what I'm talking about? Every song has an ending. Very easy to do, and as far as the budget's concerned, you can do from one extreme to the other. We did Shara's apartment, her first apartment, and Grayson did that wall, and he used all reclaimed wood. And when I say reclaimed, I'm talking about grabbing it from people's yards on the side. Of course, he asked for it first. Bringing it back, sanding it down, and literally just putting it up on the wall. It was perfect the way he did it because it was perfect for an apartment. We not only could use it there, but we could take it down easily. And we used that same exact wood wall to recreate the look in our office. So talk about reclaimed. I mean, it was reclaimed and then reclaimed, right? In this girl's bedroom, we wanted to do something that was really kind of beachy, and so we did a reclaimed wood wall, but it wasn't really reclaimed. This is a middle of the road price. This is something that you can do and you actually apply it straight on your wall, but it is new wood. They say that every song has in this particular application, we used new wood, not reclaimed. But the wood itself was stained in several different colors before it was applied on the wall, and that gave us a look of a reclaimed wood. What we paid for it was about $2,000. Again, a beachy, sort of a surfer room. We wanted to use the reclaimed wood, and it's actually reclaimed wood, which oddly enough is more expensive than new wood. Go figure. We decided this wall here, remember the point number one, whatever you want to really draw attention to or create a focal point, that's where you put your elements of interest. So we did a reclaimed wood wall on the wall that the bed was going to go on. That way, bam, first impression, great focal point. That is gorgeous. The fourth way you can do this is a kind of a new product on the market. It's called Reclaim Arbor, and it's a peel and stick application where the wood pieces come in the planks, but you have a peel and stick. You just peel this thing off and you stick it on the wall. It is so cool. Now, if you like this look and you're interested in it, this company says that they will offer you guys with a coupon code, which we'll put either in your PDF or it'll be here on the video, a 50% off coupon. I mean, how amazing is that? You can make a huge difference in your home on one wall or however many walls you want to do it in a day.
Hey guys, it's Jason from Robeson, and we're here at Matthew's house, and this is the product that Rebecca has been talking to you about. What we're going to do is we're going to mix and match sizes, and the thing that's neat about it is that 2 of the skinny planks equal 1 of the medium planks. So I can get a real nice kind of patchwork effect out of this without very much effort. We're going to use a circular saw today because we have one, but if you don't, all you need to do this is a box cutter and a tape measure. So So one thing I want to point out to you guys is that because this is a natural product, there's a shade variation amongst the planks. And in order to get the really reclaimed look that we're going for, I want to make sure that we stagger the darks and the lights. Could not believe how easily it installed. The circular saw definitely helped. I'd recommend doing that if going out and renting one. If not, and you want to go the box cutter route, it's going to take you a little longer, but it's totally possible to do. What do you guys think? I love it. It's amazing. In one afternoon, we were able to pull this total transition together. So I wanted to call out that Matthew's a photographer, and we used one of his amazing art pieces above the bed here, which I think really sets off this gray. All right, so let's send you back to Rebecca for the rest of the design session.
So didn't Matthew's house turn out so cute? I mean, what a difference in his guest room just by adding the texture of that wall. That's what this whole session is about. Guys, go from drywall to dreamy in one day. That's what we should have named this thing. That was a brilliant moment right there. So it's not just walls with wood applications that can make a big statement. And it's not just around your doors or around your windows or an entrance. It can be on the ceiling. In fact, I think that's a really amazing application for wood, and it can make such a huge difference. Take, for example, this home that we did. The entryway, I had kind of a long hallway next to a living room and a lot of drywall. They had already put these little drywall arches in. It was really popular when this house was built. But if you look at the ceiling here, you can kind of get a couple places. The ceiling is just drywall. So I decided, what if we made that hallway a feature, made it something really like spectacular? So right here, this is where I thought, all right, what if we do the dark in here, and we'd do the dark wood here, do it in a nice rich mahogany, and then of course we would have these like little light fixtures that come down. That could make a really amazing first impression when you first walk in the house, right? And that is how it looked when it was done. Do you see this? The dark wood paneling in the ceiling, beautiful crown molding, and look at those light fixtures. What a difference something like that made in the entry of this home. So simple and yet so elegant. These are some clever things you can do with your molding and save you some money. Take a look at this base molding. There's molding on the bottom. Let's say you've watched this session today and a couple years ago you guys put in 4-inch base molding and you thought that was really wow, because compared to the 2 inches you had before, it was great. But you now want to upgrade it a little bit. Well, here's an idea of something you can do for pennies on the dollar in comparison. Take a look at this. They have base molding on the bottom here, and then a second little, like a little chair rail kind of molding, a flat molding was added to that, maybe 2 inches above it. So it took it from 4 to, let's say, 6.5, maybe even 7 inches. But look what they did here. They just painted the drywall in between the two moldings, and look at the finished look. Existing molding, a new piece added, and paint the drywall in between, and look at how great that looks. That's a way you can upgrade what you currently have. You don't have to take it down, but you can just add to it and make it spectacular. Last month during the pillow session, we were at Jimmy and Emily's house. Jimmy's my son, Emily's his wife, and they were doing a whole segment on pillows, and they said, you know what, we feel like our house is growing up one design session at a time. So to keep that theme going and to keep this super relevant, Jimmy is going to show you how to inexpensively and very easily and quickly apply casements to his own openings to his living room and the doors in his home.
Hey guys, welcome back to my house. As we've been doing different design sessions and sort of adding different things to our house, Rebecca, my mom, wanted me to kind of point out some different ways that we can add character to our house. And one of those ways is we've been adding moldings to our windows, to our doors, and today we're going to be adding molding to our openings into our living room right here. So as you can see, they're basically just drywall. We're gonna add some simple wood, pine pieces of wood around it to really beef it up and make it look awesome and expensive. Because I've already done some moldings, I'm gonna mimic that style on this application here. I'm gonna bring it around at the same exact height so it looks custom, it looks like I had purpose in what I was doing. All right, so the first step is we gotta take off the baseboard. So what I like to do is I start with a razor blade, because usually there's caulk right here, kind of sealing the baseboard to the wall. So there's that first piece. I'm gonna do that all the way around. The piece of wood is gonna lay flat. So I'm gonna measure from the top of this lip all the way down to the floor. Great, so now that the piece fits exactly square with this line right here, I'm gonna line it up against this edge. I'll be honest, it was a little intimidating at first to use a nail gun, but we rented one from Home Depot, and it was really easy to use, and it speeds up your time. I'm gonna shoot a couple nails in. I'm not gonna fully just go crazy and nail it in case something needs to move a little bit. This is just sort of holding in place while I'm building. I'm gonna do the same exact cut and place it here, on the back here, and on each side, so that I'm doing that same step on each place. I'm gonna make sure and measure, because this is an old house. They may not be exactly the same height, so I'm gonna make sure. So the next piece that we're gonna do is this flat piece. That's the widest piece of all to cover up this drywall. So this should fit perfectly square. So we've framed out all these edges. Now we're gonna build on top of here. So this first piece is a smaller piece that we're gonna lay on its side. And we wanna make sure that it's completely square. If you can see this line is gonna run directly up with that piece. The next step, once we have the casement all installed, is to do the caulking. And you can see I have a small little bead there of caulk. It's not too much. Hey!
How's your project going?
It is turning out really good. You want to see it?
Yeah.
You got your glasses on?
Oh, wow. Golly, that looks amazing. And have you decided to go ahead and do the shiplap on Mora's ceiling?
Yes.
I think when you add details to your walls like shiplap or reclaimed wood or even paneling, it can make such a huge difference. Now these ceiling treatments, in my business, I always hire a professional to do it, but did you know you could actually do it for a song? I mean, like pennies on the dollar. Let's take a look at what Jimmy's doing in his house.
We've put shiplap up in our house and different accent walls, but she had kind of a creative idea in maybe doing some sort of treatment or a shiplap type of treatment on a ceiling. And our daughter, in her nursery, we thought that would be the perfect place to try something. We bought this already made shiplap, picked a tongue and groove type of board. And so they simply just slide into each other like this. And it gives you a really finished look. So the distance of the room on the ceiling is 133 inches. So we're measuring right at 133, and then we're gonna cut it. There's no cool way of taking this chair out of here. All right, so for safety's sake, first we have some sweet toilet paper in our ears.
I got Bose headphones.
Oh, okay, Bose headphones, either luxury or I'm doing the low budget. And so we're making sure to shoot the nails into the studs so that they're secure on the ceiling. So this is actually just a magnet. It's called the Stud Buddy. This is not an ad. You know, there's beams that go across here, and when they're building the house, they put nails in, and this basically finds wherever the nails are through the drywall, and it stays like that, so then you know where to nail your nails in. So I'm basically going to be cutting out a hole. It's going to be spanning across two boards, but a hole for the recessed lighting to go in.
Hey, honey.
Welcome.
Wow.
You like it?
Yes. I can't believe you got that done so quick.
Yes, it's
so
a lot of work.
And look at how these lines connect. I mean, really, it totally brings the eye up. And all this white brings in your white frames over there, your white chairs.
I would say it's probably $125 per
arch.
opening.
Or opening, it's not arched.
Yeah.
$125.
Yeah.
I've been paying a lot more than that with my contractors to do this kind of thing. So how long did it take you to do these two openings, and then you did also the one around the sliding glass door?
Yeah.
How long for those three things?
I would say it took 1 day to install all of them, to cut them and nail them up on the wall.
Wow.
And then it took another day to caulk and paint them.
Okay, and then, so it's a weekend project?
Yeah, a weekend project.
What do you think it's done for your house?
Oh, I mean, it feels like a custom house. I mean, it is custom because I custom made it to fit. We have a tract home from the 60s, you know, so it's an older house, and it kind of gives it that charm that should go with that decade, you know what I mean? It feels just like you want to come and sit down and stay. It feels comfortable.
What I love, and our second point of this design session is it doesn't have to be fussy,
right,
and to be fantastic, right? So you've taken the casement idea and the wood wall idea to a really family-friendly, cool, hip, modern, kind of almost, it's almost like a little bit of a connection of farmhouse.
Yeah.
You know, that farmhouse look. I think you did a fabulous job, and I think it's perfect.
Okay.
Would you like a couple of ideas of things you can do to make it even more perfect?
Sure.
As a mother,
yes,
this is not a critical moment. This is a aha moment. So I have something over here I want to show you. One of the things that I encourage people to do is to paint out their AC ducts, their vents. You know, basically, if you want it to go away, right now it's part of your art thing here, right? Fortunately, it's in the center. Sometimes they're like so off, and then it really is a problem. This you could live with, but I think that this whole thing, you will draw attention to this and this if that essentially goes away. So here's the tip to doing that. You definitely don't paint it in place.
Okay.
You have to unscrew it and take it down. I mean, that's the way it is with anything. Never paint around your outlets or your, you know, your electrical switch plate. And then stick it back up there and it'll go away. And then you'll be surprised with something. I mean, this is a big deal. You made a big deal. You'll be surprised at what painting that out to be the color of the wall, what a huge difference it makes. It's silly, costs little to nothing, but it's just those little details that make a difference. This turned out so cute.
Yeah, it looks really cool, huh? Basically, this was the boys' room. All three of our boys lived in this room. And then we decided to switch things up because of the different sizes of the rooms. So some of the details we've done in here are sort of getting us ready to do a makeover.
So I have a surprise for you.
Okay, what?
Once the design sessions has covered all the topics of design, basically I give everyone the tools they need to do their home. We're going to take all those tools, we're going to address them room by room. And there is going to be a session on how to do a little girl's room and or nursery, and I'm thinking we should use Maura's room for that.
That would be awesome.
Which means Mimi pays for it.
Ooh, that's even more awesome.
Yeah. Well, this looks great. Now, you're not finished because you have to fill all the holes.
I'm going to fill all the holes. I need to paint the ceiling. And because of it being a girl's room, we thought maybe we should put a touch of kind of girlies, a little maybe swirly crown or something in here. So I would keep it, well, I like the idea of crown because I think that would look great, especially with pink walls. I also like the idea of it giving you a finished edge. Right. But I wouldn't go too swirly. Okay. I'd keep it in a really modern kind of crown because you want it to go with the rest of your house. I want to thank you, and I'm sure you guys want to thank Jimmy and Emily again for allowing us to use
They're home for
mean,
the design sessions?
As we said last time, every design sessions, our house gets better and better, so.
Yeah. I think that was like my favorite thing that Emily said last time was, I feel like our house is growing up one design session at a time.
And it sure is.
And it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, every month. And that's my hope for my viewers, is that when you guys are watching these, you are picking up ideas, and that by including Jimmy and Emily, the whole point of this, besides helping you have a nicer house, is to show you how it's obtainable,
right,
and it's doable, and you as the viewer.
I'm doing all the work.
Yeah.
I'm actually learning the lesson and then taking it to my house and applying it. The worst thing that can happen is you cut a piece of wood too short and you have to get a new one. But.
And then it's time to make wainscot.
Yeah, exactly.
With all those short pieces. Yay. Take a look at this. This is one of the details that I just think is so cool. Now, in this house before, when I first got here, baseboard came around here, but see how it steps down? What do you do with baseboard like that? And you see how the base molding here stops right here and then steps down below. I mean, is that annoying or what? To see that line like that? So my thought was this, I wanted to raise the baseboard a little bit, make it taller than it was. What if I brought this across here and straight, and when it stepped down, instead of the base molding, the top line going with it, it stayed consistent. What that meant though, was that when it was in the lower part of the room, I was gonna have to have 12-inch baseboard. I've never done 12-inch baseboard before, but this had a super high ceiling and it actually turned out great. And here on my SketchUp drawing, you can see what I did for the contractors. It shows how once it stepped down into the dining room, it was at 12 inches, but then the part that came around to this part here was 6, and then back down the other step into the kitchen, another 12. So the bottom line is, get creative, think outside the box, and think it through. How can you keep that top line especially consistent and the same height? You may be wondering, what is too much? When do you have too much molding in your house? And I think it depends totally on your style. There are some styles that can take a lot, but in this particular picture, I found this online and I thought, I think this is actually too much. Not only do they have huge casements, huge crown molding around here, baseboards, they have wainscoting, and then underneath of the staircase, they also did wood paneling. Each section is actually beautiful in and of itself. This is really pretty underneath the stairs. This is a beautiful casement over the door. The crown molding is gorgeous. The wainscot is very well done, but all together, it can be too much. So you just have to kind of think it through. Let's talk a little bit about wainscot. And every time I do wainscot, I like to do it in a raised panel, but you can also, for those of you who need to do it on a budget, you can do the molding on top of drywall and then paint it so that it looks like wainscot. But the actual proper way to do it is in either a recessed panel or a raised panel. Often a problem, I think, in people putting wainscot in their home is they get their proportion wrong. I like to have a lot more wall above my wainscot than below. If we just take a look back at the picture that I showed you a few minutes ago, imagine if they had taken this wainscot and they put it kind of in the middle of that wall, as far as the height's concerned, and all of this was white down here. I want you to see how that would affect the proportion of the space. You see that? Half of it's drywall, half of it's wainscot. It doesn't look good. It's much better if the top half is taller than the bottom half. Does that make sense? Take a look at this picture. There's a casement around the door, and they have wainscot and casement around the windows. But look at how high this wainscot is. It's still a little shorter than what's above it, but by and large, because of the height, look at the height of the door, essentially that wainscot comes to the middle of the door and it makes it look dumpy, short. If I had taken this wainscot maybe down here, that's where I would have put it, and around this way, then you would have had so much more drywall above it, it would have been below the center of the door. All right, perfect example right here. That is well done. Do you see where the wainscot is here? And then how much drywall there is above it? It's by and large way more than 50%. This to me looks well proportioned. Hopefully that helps you and makes more sense. Also, I really like this particular wainscot because look at the recessed paneling here. It's got enough of a detail on it that it looks legit, right? It looks really classy. Here are some photos of projects that we've done where we did wainscot up a staircase. Take a look at this picture. This is a wonderful base molding for a more modern home. Now, this could actually be contemporary as well. Let me show you. It could be even more contemporary if they did this. Do you see this right down here? This is the base shoe. If that base shoe was not added to that, but that whole thing went straight down, straight to the floor, this would have been the perfect base molding for a modern or contemporary home. I think it would be gorgeous. But what it is that's so different is basically your drywall comes down to a certain point. Let's say this is a 6-inch base mold. Your drywall stops at 6 1/4 inches from the floor. Your base, and then it steps back. Then your base mold goes on, which now makes it flush, but there is that little 1/4 inch reveal in between there that creates the shadowing in that little space, and it makes it super clean and super nice. And when we finish it on this project we're working on in Del Mar, I can't wait to show you because it's amazing. I've never actually used it before, but I think it's really, really cool. So I just thought I would take a second to show you how I shop for my molding for my projects. This is a, basically it's Saroyan molding. I use a catalog because it makes it easy, but what I love is in the back. Let me just show you here. Inside, there's all kinds of pictures of the types of molding and what it looks like and the sizes that you're looking at. So let's say you go to crown molding. These are crowns. You're going to see something interesting. For example, it's going to give you how far down on the wall it goes and how far into the ceiling. So let's say you have a air conditioning and heating register and you need to miss that. Sometimes you can get crown molding where most of it goes on the ceiling and it only drops on the wall a couple of inches, let's say, but it goes maybe 5 inches onto the ceiling, or just the opposite. Maybe you need to go down the wall more and less that way. So you're going to find those kinds of details and measurements on there. But what I like about this is on the back, they have this index and it shows you all the different profiles they offer. To me, that's the way I like to look for them. When you come over here to these are just the little extra pieces. Remember the base molding that I said they added a piece to the top to make it taller and then they painted the drywall? Well, you can find that here on this area. So see, you see something that's flat on the back and then it's kind of got a design that's similar on both sides. There's two types of moldings. One's called multi-species. That means it might come in pine, or it might come in oak, or it might come in walnut or maple. You need to know that in case you're putting it on a stained built-in or something like that. So yeah, and if it's not the stainable wood, then it is MDF, and MDF is paintable, super strong. It's what my whole built-in is made out of. Not a stick of wood on that thing anywhere. And to further illustrate principle number 3 of fixing architectural things that might be a little off in your room, this is a children's playroom in a home that we did here in San Diego. And this one wall that I was going to put the sofa on had 2 windows and a drywall space beside it. Now, I'm sure no one in their right mind, except maybe me, would look at this and see this as a problem. They just wouldn't, because there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's 2 windows and then there's no window there. Well, we couldn't put in another window, but I just looked at that space and in my mind, I could say, well, look at the distance between there. What if there was that here? And what if I did this? If I could put in another window, how pretty would that be to look like it was like the whole wall was filled in and not like 2 windows over here and drywall over here. So do you see what I'm saying? Look at that. That sort of brings balance to that room, don't you think? Well, it wasn't possible to put a window in, but I did have an idea. What if I used casement? Yes. And I had a frame made to go right here. And then I had this window cased out, exactly the same. And then I had this window cased out, exactly the same. But wait a minute, you say, there's no window there, that looks weird. Not if you knew what I did with it. So let me show you what we did next. The next thing to do was to paint the walls. Okay, we did a striped effect on these walls. Is this so cute? Look at that. Each one of those is individually painted on there. But wait a minute. Okay, so I go down like this, and I go like this. I'm gonna have to put window shades on these two windows. What if I got a piece of art, which I did, for this one over here? So now this casement's no longer a casement, it's a frame for a piece of art. And we have a cute diamond-shaped kind of guy going on here, right? What if we do our roller shades here? Grayson comes in and he paints this to look exactly like that piece of art, only this is on the shade. When the shades go down, I have 3 matching pieces of art. Let me show you how it looks done, lest you think I'm just a crazy person. Bam. The bottom line is there's just so much you can do with wood, whether it be on your ceiling, on your baseboards, your casements, your crown molding, your walls. You can do beams on the ceiling. There's so much, but it's always a matter of cost, time, and what's gonna look good in your space. But remember, you can embellish something and make it a standout in your room. Do you think that my entryway where that big mirror is, do you think when I bought this house and I saw this big 13-foot tall piece of drywall staring at me, do you think I was impressed with that? And I thought, oh, I can't wait to buy this house. That's such a great first impression. No, it wasn't. But it is now, because I said, that's the first thing you see, that's my tall wall, I want to make that a focal point. And with a mirror and some casement around it, I did. I hope this gives you those ideas. Identify those spaces in your home that are important to you, that you want to really embellish, you really want to make gorgeous. Then you need to say, okay, am I a fancy, or do I want this to be super elaborate and all this kind of molding and everything, or do I want it to be really simple? Or do I want it contemporary? Do I want it mid-century? What do I want? Identify that look. And then the third thing is make sure you fix all of those spaces in your home that have ups and downs or missing windows or funky stuff. You guys, just think about it. You could get so stinking creative in your home. And I'm telling you what, I want you to apply all the principles you've learned in the design sessions when it comes to your furniture placement and the colors you paint your walls and where you put your art and if it's vertical or horizontal and whether or not you have area rugs and what kind of area rugs and how high do you put your window treatments and what kind of fabric and what are you going to keep the sun out with, right? I want you to know what kind of lighting, where should you drop a chandelier, where should you use candlelights, where should you use pendants or sconces. All of those things are fabulous and they're going to make your house beautiful, but you add the elements of custom details and it will take you to a whole nother hemisphere. I promise. I hope this has been a great session for you and that you've learned a lot. I hope you've enjoyed this. I love you. And for those of you who watched live and were communicating with me through the Twitter account, it's fun. All right, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, hey guys. That's so awkward.
It starts with an S. It's got a Y in it, an R, an O. Sororian. It starts with an S, ends with an N. Sororian. Otherwise, it is MDF, that multiple density. What are you doing with your stomach?
Rebecca, this is the TH and H book.
I know, but it's all. But these are these.
It's L and L.
It's Sororian. Starts with an S, ends with an N.